Releasing Trauma is sponsored by the Global Association for Trauma Recovery. The Global Association for Trauma Recovery is a social impact organization serving as a resource for survivors and their families, dedicated to facilitating change by spreading trauma-related awareness and thus creating a more trauma-informed world. Learn more at gaftr.org. Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Elizabeth Kipp, and we are going to talk about from surviving to thriving and how to live your best life. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks, Tracy. It's my pleasure to be able to speak to you and your listeners.
This is one of my favorite topics because, we get stuck in that survival mode for so long that when we're able to get out of it and really start thriving, that's when life just happens again and things are good, So I absolutely love this topic.
Thank you. I can I share a little bit about the journey from surviving to thriving?
Absolutely, please do.
Yeah. So I suffered due to physical and emotional trauma. I suffered with chronic pain for over 40 years, and the doctors the only answer they had was medication, opiates and benzodiazepines, which didn't serve me really. It kind of tided me over until I found another doctor, but I just got sicker and sicker, and I really felt like I was really grasping onto life by a thread. Finally, I met a doctor who really understood the nature of chronic pain, which is a brain disease. It wasn't about the injury in my back. It was about the way the brain was perceiving the situation. And he was able to help me detox off the medication, which was huge. And then teach me how to live a life without suffering.
Oh, that is huge. So many people, when they have chronic pain, they just deal with it and they're stuck with it.
Well, it says more about the how much we understand about chronic pain, or the particular doctor was sitting in front of understands about chronic pain. The Western medical establishment generally isn't. The doctors are not. They're not taught about chronic pain in medical school. Hopefully that's changing with the change in the way opiates are prescribed nowadays. Hopefully that's changing. But as I said, and let's just define for the audience, what is chronic pain? Chronic pain is any pain, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, any kind of pain that you feel for 3 months, that's felt for 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more. Any pain, it doesn't matter what kind it is, sends the same signal to the brain, it hurts. So the brain can't tell the difference between one kind of pain or another. And all those things, if you feel it for 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more, it actually changes the way the brain operates. And for those of the listeners that either are in chronic pain or have had chronic pain or know someone that's in chronic pain, they may recognize these some of the symptoms that I'll just some of the things that we experience as a result of chronic pain are confusion in the brain, chaos in the brain fog. I can't think straight. and an increase in negative thinking. Also, hypervigilance, always looking out for when the next thing is going to come to hit you. And also, I wrote a book called The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power, mostly about the tools that I was taught to, a little bit about my story, but mostly the tools that I was taught to, non-pharmaceutical tools that I was taught to help heal the chronic pain that I had. And they're easy to use. You just have to use them every day. And one of the most powerful questions that, and the doctor that took me through this, his program was Dr. Peter Prescott. He wrote a book, Conquer Chronic Pain, an innovative mind-body approach. His program no longer exists. He passed away a few years ago, but he left that beautiful book. I teach both his book and my book. And one of the most powerful questions he asked me was, and he asked the whole class, I was shocked at the time, was, what are you doing to contribute to your pain? And my first response to that question, and I didn't say it out loud, but I said it inside myself, was, I'm not doing anything. The pain's doing it to me. But after I listened to him for a while, I realized, oh, wow, that's a really empowering question, because he just took me from a space of feeling completely victimized by the pain to a place of empowerment. And I was actually able to see that just me judging my pain as bad and wanting to get rid of it, those two things alone were locking the pain into a much more vicious cycle. That may not make sense, but it almost, sometimes people think like that, how does that even work? But it works. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, because the way we think, the way we feel, that has a huge aspect on how our bodies react and how they work. And if we're constantly in stress, we're constantly in a negative state of mind, that puts a lot of strain. We're pumping the cortisol, and that creates a lot of dis-ease in our body.
Absolutely. The way that I see it now, Western medicine tends to look at it as a reductionist model, which we can talk about in a minute. But Dr. Peter Prescott was the first doctor that looked at me, and he didn't care about my x-rays or my records. He wanted to know who I was. He was looking at me as a whole person. He looked straight into me and saw someone who was just blocking the body's intelligence. So the body has this beautiful intelligence. It's a healing machine, but the mind, as you said, our beliefs, our limited beliefs, negative thinking, all those kinds of things. Diet is a piece of it too.
Oh yeah.
Those things block healing. And so our job as patients, if you will, is to support the body, feed, water, rest, exercise the body, support it in any way we can, and then get the mind out of the way. Because it comes in with judgment. Oh, what's wrong with me? Is this ever going to go away? Oh my God, this hurts. All that kind of stuff. It just gets in the way.
Well, I would imagine, it not only does it get in the way, but it just re-triggers everything.
Well, it'll lock it in even more. I noticed I was doing something some years ago, and when I was kind of early out of Dr. Peter's program, I was still really recovering. My nervous system was still finding regulation again. I'm so dysregulated from all the pain and my reaction to it. I discovered this thing I called the cycle of suffering. And this is what we do when we get in pain. Now, I did it, and I've sat in front of thousands of chronic pain patients, and we all do it, because I just wasn't able to label it and see it, but I've certainly heard it from many people. is that it's the dynamic of the cycle of suffering. So we have a pain experience and we can't share it with anyone because they can't experience what we're experiencing. So we feel disconnected. And in the chronic pain experience, this is not just a disconnection from others. We can feel disconnected from ourselves because we're not who we used to be. There's that judgment again. And we can feel disconnected from any source, any concept of higher power we have. Oh, am I being punished? What's wrong with me? Did I do something wrong? Where's God? All that kind of stuff. Uh-huh. So we go from disconnection, and then we find ourselves isolated, and then we judge our experience as bad. I don't want to be here. Then we get an attachment with it. We're attached to it because we're stuck in it. We get an attachment. We try and control it, and when we can't, we get a resentment. And the whole thing starts all over again. We get even more disconnected. We become more isolated. We judge it even more. We get more attached because we're so frustrated. We can't do anything about it. We can't control it, and we get even more of a resentment. And people in chronic pain. My book, I was very careful to make sure that people heard what a chronic pain person really is sounding like inside, because generally chronic pain sufferers either complain all the time or they don't say a word. And so you see these two extremes, but what's really happening on the inside is something in the middle. Anyway, that's the cycle of suffering, and we all do it. The thing is that we can pull ourselves out of that by not judging our experience, not feeling like the universe is doing this to me, just understanding that this is what's happening in this moment, and not judging the moment, and understanding that healing, pain is part of healing.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. You have to go through the pain sometimes to heal. So how do, I know you mentioned that we can pull ourselves out of it by not judging and that kind of thing. But, what are some of the tools that you talk about in your book that we can use to, stop the chronic pain or to just stop the cycle?
Well, as I said, the first thing is to stop judging ourselves, stop judging our experience as bad. A really important concept, easier to say than to do necessarily, because we have an old habit of judging our experience.
Oh yeah.
But number one is that was if but Dr. Peter taught me lots of things, but and other teachers have come along and taught me things, and life has taught me things, but that is like the key piece. That's one key piece. That's kind of the mental key piece. The other piece that's more trauma based, because as I said, the nervous system is so dysregulated. It's really important to understand how to leverage the breath to help hack the nervous system and calm it and get it regulated again. And it's important to get in front of another person who can hold space and in a calm, safe way, so that you can co-regulate with them. We're social creatures. We need to do this in community. We need to do this with another, maybe a trauma specialist or someone who understands the nature of trauma and understands how co-regulation works. So number two is get in front of somebody that knows how to hold space. The other one, like I said, leverage the breath. Of course, when I talk about regulating the nervous system, I'm talking about the vagus nerve, which goes into every organ of the body. It's the older part is from the heart down into the organs, and the newer part is from the heart up, and it goes into the lungs and up into the throat and ears and face. So when we breathe, we're accessing this vagus nerve, which is it helps us co-regulate to know who's safe and who isn't, and it also helps us. It's our threat assessment system, so we understand are we safe or are we not, and it's the place that decides, are we going to go into fight or flight and run away or fight, or shut down, or are we going to rest and digest and create? This, you kind of can't do one or the other. You got to do one or the other. You can't do both at the same time. When we do breath work, it moves us out and moves the nervous system out of this heightened alertness, this sympathetic nervous system, if you will, into the parasympathetic rest, digest, create. So it's a completely different, it allows the body, and in that space, the body can heal. When we can rest, we can heal. So that's three things. The fourth thing, and they're all really important, is the meditation. Meditation, just a very simple breath meditation, maybe a simple mantra, helps to calm the mind, and so it helps the brain heal. It's one of the kind of major tools to help heal the changes that chronic pain brings in the brain. And the fifth one, and they're all equally in weight in terms of importance, so that sure. it's not like, so they're all equal. And the fifth one is ancestral clearing. That's a little more esoteric process, kind of. But it's based on the premise that we come into this life with the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. And for instance, something that everyone may be familiar with, somebody in your family, maybe the women and maybe the men, have worry energy. You may have seen that, and you may have seen it in the family, people that fret all the time. That's actually in the lineage. We can see that going back. I mean, look at all what's happened to humanity on the suffering. No wonder there's worry energy, right?
Right.
Well, those kinds of things that get the traumas that we experience in our ancestors get, if they're not resolved during that person's lifetime, then they get passed down to the next generation.
Uh-huh.
And so that ancestral clearing work is really helpful in clearing the burden that we came in with, and anything that's in our past in this lifetime. So it's a beautiful practice. Those are the 5 main things. And I would add with you, share with your audience, the 12 steps of wellness. 1, none of us were born to suffer. 2, we all have the ability to heal. 3, love with all your heart. 4, get real about your healing. 5, commit to your healing. 6, do the work it takes to heal. 7, do the work every day. 8, get real about your healing, in case you didn't hear us the first time. 9, never let anyone or anything get in the way of your healing. 10, love yourself fiercely and without reservation. 11, accept what is. And 12, be grateful for all that comes your way, and more will be revealed.
I love those. I absolutely love those. Gratitude is huge. When we come from a place of gratitude, there's no room for the negativity.
Agreed. Yes, I think that's what tided me over for so many years. I didn't dream it up. I really feel like I came in with the gift of gratitude. I just remember kind of, my childhood had stress in it, and I can remember the way I balanced myself with that stress, because I had no idea what to do with emotions or anything else, and I wasn't allowed to express myself. Was I was grateful that I had a roof over my head, and I had food in my belly, and I had clothes, and I had a school to go to, and I had a bed to sleep in. I was really grateful, and I swear that's what kept me balanced. I feel like it's so important that people just don't get it. And science now has actually, there is some science out there that actually looks at gratitude as the effect of gratitude is a physiological shift in the brain.
I can see that, because our thoughts become patterns in our brain. And so when we have different thoughts and we shift from the negative thinking to the gratitude thinking, then yeah, it's definitely going to change our brain.
You can feel it in the body when you go, oh my gosh, I'm so mad at XYZ, and then you're like, oh, and I'm so grateful at ABC.
Absolutely.
It's a complete shift in body chem. You can feel it. It's not just in the mind; it's in the body.
It is. It is. You know, when you come from a place of anger or negativity, you're tense. You're probably hunching your shoulders or clenching your jaw, or and then when you come from a place of gratitude, you're more relaxed and calm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me and sharing this with us. This has been fantastic. How can our listeners find you?
You can find me at elizabeth-kipp.com. You got to put the dash in there between Elizabeth and Kipp. Because elizabethkipp.com is a photographer and who's amazing, but it's not me. That's not what I do. Elizabeth-kipp.com, and you can find me on social media. I would like to say I'm about to co-author a book called The Ancestors Within, Connect and Discover Your Ancestors, which will be out, I think, in October, which is kind of exciting. And I'll be talking about in that. We had another volume, which was this is volume 2 of that series, The Ancestors Within. The first one was The Ancestors Within: Reveal and Heal the Ancient Memories You Carry, where I bring in the concept of the modality of ancestral clearing. In the second book, I talk about the actual best practices to actually just connect with your ancestors if you've never done that before, or if you don't know who they are, kind of and also understanding our empathic how to we're all empaths at some level. As humans, we're empaths. Some of us are just more sensitive than others. And so I speak to that piece in this book because people get confused between their feelings and the feelings of others, and I kind of lay that out.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that one to come out. Listeners, you know the drill. I will have all of Elizabeth's contact information and the links to her books down in the show notes. Just head over to releasingtraumapodcast.com and pull up Elizabeth's show, and everything will be there for you. So, Elizabeth, thank you again for coming on. This has been wonderful.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tracy, and all the best to you and your listeners.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. We'll talk to you in the next show.